Hello, welcome back to Evil Genius Props. My name is Mike, and I'm your Evil Genius for today. What we're doing today is finishing up the campaign watch box build. This is part 3. Parts 1 and 2 will be available up here. Anyway, what we're doing today is finishing it up. So we're putting in the glass on the lid, we're putting on the hardware, all the sort of more fun, interesting bits of it, and finishing it up. And we'll get to see the finished product. So let's go to the workbench. A big part of what makes campaign furniture is the hardware. One of the things that's common was brass binding along the joints. So I've got some thin brass strips, and we're going to just put some of those right over there. Will help cover up some of the questionable dovetails that I've done. But so we'll take care of those in a bit. Cut some of those out. Do them as well on our lid, where because of the way this lines up, there will actually be sort of this gap that you would otherwise see. But we'll cover that over with the brass strap so that it's not visible. But in addition to that, one of the key sort of defining factors with campaign furniture, because it was designed to be taken on campaign and moved around a lot, was that all the hardware would be recessed and lay flat to the side. So like the sides of the boxes was the total size. So like there wasn't the box plus 2 inches on the side, either side for handles. So with that in mind, I have this. It is a pull ring, and this will go on the front here as the pull for the drawer, and then when it's not used, it'll flatten back out and just pull that out the ring and pull out the drawer. As well, I got some brass hinges to go in the back, and lots of tiny brass screws. Those will actually go with the brass straps to help hold those in. So I've marked out what I think is the center, and I don't actually have a Forstner bit as big as this, but I got one that's pretty close. So I'm going to start with that to sort of hog out a little bit of the main circle here. All right, so I don't want to go all the way down, but there is this divot there. So what I do have is a bit that is about the right size. So we're going to use that center ring that I've already cut to start. Cut that one down a little bit farther. And yes, this would have been easier if I'd done this before I glued this on my drill press. All right, the other thing is there is the hinge piece here. So I need to cut room out for that as well. And what I can do now is just sort of shave right along the edge. But now I can use this to get a measurement for the rest. I'm just going to push from the mark I made with the marking knife. And if I have to, I'll come back again. I did some test pieces, and I've lost the piece of wood. And it was really easy to sort of overshoot that circle a little bit, and I want to avoid that. So I'm going to go really slow, take my time, which is hard because I am impatient. Because I'm trying to be real careful, I'm working really close to the tip of the chisel, and you can see that I'm really choked up on it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear this out a little bit with the Dremel. All right, so I'm not going to screw this in now. I just did a whole lot of work cutting it in, but I'm not going to fully attach it yet, just because I want to do the rest of it so I can get it in there. So here's where we are. I went ahead and stained the
inside, just use some oil, some tongue oil. This isn't actual tongue oil, I believe it's tongue oil finish, so I prefer to have the real stuff, but this is what I have for right now. We're just going to take some regular paste finishing wax, just take a little bit, and mostly on top, but also the sides, and just rub that on there nice. More on the other side. And then we're going to do the same thing over on the drawer. And then the idea there is that the wax will make it a little bit easier for that to slide in and out. So with that done, I've also went ahead and glued in the drawer liner. And I hope I'm at the point where now the only thing left to do at this point is to start gluing this part up. So I'm going to get the clamps ready, so I'm not reaching for them later, because that's totally something I would do. And dovetails are nice and strong, so we don't need a lot of glue to hold things together. We just want to keep the dovetails from sliding around a little bit. Alright, and now comes the trick for cleaning up these corners. And that is some of the dust from working on these guys. What we're going to do is just put some glue right in here. Take a tiny pinch and just rub it in there. And basically what we're doing is making our own kind of custom wood filler to fill in those areas where maybe it didn't quite work out right. Let's go ahead now and put on some clamps. Give them the clamps! Put that top layer here, this top drawer, shelf, whatever you want to call that, just to help sort of keep everything square. So it's clamped up. We'll come back to it later and then clean up those corners with some sandpaper. I went and got a piece of glass and had it cut to fit, and you'll see it slides right in there, and that'll be our lid. So all we have to do now is just glue the lid up. There's a little bit of extra room this way, so I've got some tape on here to hold everything kind of right where I want it until I get the clamps on. For this clamp up, I'm going to use one of these guys. I pre-fit it earlier. And this way the clamping pressure is equal on the corners. Should help keep everything nice and straight. So I've done the lid. We're going to go ahead and do the side now. And I think I'm just going to do one right here. I'm going to put it right on this dovetail. No particular reason why I need to do it there, just aesthetically with the other one being up here. I feel like that's going to be a good one. I don't think I'm going to do one in front of the drawers, just because I have to split it, obviously. And then it's not going to look right, I don't think. So we'll go with one right here, but it's the same thing as doing the other ones. Just lay it out. If you get a sneak peek on the inside there, that's just a single coating of tongue oil. I'm going to do two on the outside, at least two. But that's why the inside looks a little bit different than the outside here. So I think what I found out is that putting the chisel right at the edge here And cutting that really helps that first line come through. It just really helps cut those fibers a little bit better than just the knife. And I do just keep flipping this around just to get the angle that I want, so I'm not pushing this at myself. I can just work on it really well and safely. Man, the end grain just is not nearly as nice as to work with as across the grain, or with the grain, I guess. And then just flip that down and do the other side. And I'm going to repeat that 7 more times. So I'll do that and we'll catch back up. So this is a rough idea of what's going to look like. These are just sort of held on either by friction or tape. But you can get a preview of what it's going to look like. I'll clean up a little bit more beforehand, but this is the idea, is to get these sort of brass bands along the side. I think next thing I'm going to do actually is going to cut in the hinges. So I'm going to do 3 hinges. 3 hinges. And I just sort of laid them out so they're roughly even, but aesthetically pleasing, even though they're going to be in the back. So they're about 3 inches on a side. And about 3.5 in between. So you can't see them here, but when I take off the lid, one of them is going to fall, but you can see where they are. And then we'll just do kind of just like I just did with the bands. And just cut in the hinges. And then it's just a case of chiseling out the waste. I'm going to move the lid with the glass so I don't break that. So I think I might actually move this out just a little bit to completely hide that hinge in there. So not a big deal, just trim a little bit more off the front. And cut in on what I'm calling the carcass here. Now I'll figure out how to get those transferred up onto our glass. I'm cutting these out now and then actually going to do the finish before I attach these. Last time we did this, I did the finish and then attach them. It didn't work out quite as well as I'd like. All right, so I've got enough of a mark to just lay them out. We'll get this out of the way. We'll just do the same. And then I think I might actually be able to put some finish on this tonight. These should line up. And then that will be the hinges to open the top. Next steps really are just to put a finish on this and then cut up some dividers for the inside. So I'm going to put some stain on and we'll catch up later to do the dividers. So I did a little bit of research, just practice. This was a spare piece of the brass and tried seeing if I could just drill a hole and put the screw in to hold it down for the bands. And turns out not really, because it sticks out. So I don't want that. So we're just going to skip that part. Probably just do some glue or some epoxy to hold that in place. On the other side, the screws work fine on the hinges as they're sort of countersunk a little bit to take that into consideration. So that part works, this part doesn't, so we're not going to screw the brass bands down. So our finish is done, and I'm going to see if I can screw these guys on well enough. I've just got some regular black small brass screws, and I went ahead and just poked a hole with the awl to start them off. I normally hate flathead screws. Focus. There we go. But they're appropriate for this style. So even though they probably wouldn't be this small, that's what works for this. I've made a fully functioning box. Lid, has a drawer. Everything to go now is just ease of use when installing the pull or cosmetic and putting in the brass up there. The last bit of hardware we need to put on is the brass banding here. So I tried using just some super glue to see if that would hold on okay, and it did not. So what we're going to do instead is some 5-minute epoxy. This is an older bottle, so I'd be surprised if I was able to actually get them to come out evenly. So the last thing I need to do here is make up the dividers. And I've already cut these pieces to width and also cut out this notch. But what I'm going to need to do now is set up just how far apart to make them. And I'm actually going to cut off this so that this is just sort of an open area on this side. Not to hold watches, but to hold, more like a valet tray, to hold my wallet, keys, stuff like that. So I'm just going to use one of the pillows that holds the watches to set just how far apart that needs to be. And then help hold that in place with a 1, 2, 3 block. Just try to make sure that's nice and even. Then what I'm going to do is mark off so now I have a line. Tilt that so you can see it. A line here that shows where this is going to be, and that will be, I'm going to cut that out. So I went ahead and made the cuts along the sides on my bandsaw. I'm going to use my 1/4-inch chisel here and sort of use that to just come over and just pop right off. Now I suspect this is actually going to be too small. And it is. But I can get an idea of just how much I need to open it up, which is not that much actually. So I am going to use a chisel again. I have no idea if this is the proper technique, but I like to sort of almost rock. Get you closer here. Almost rock that in to start that cut off, especially on the edge. And then I can sort of slide it in the rest of the way. Going too big. I'm not going to use any glue on these, so I want them to fit tightly. I think that can maybe go a little bit deeper. But it's a nice tight fit, so I'll try and clean this out a little bit more. And now I'll use that to set up for the next ones. So I've got 3 of these done now, and I've got 1 more to go. And what I'm going to do with this one is, rather than go like the other ones where it extends past, this is going to be on the end. So where I cut the end of this, where this last piece ends, is I'm just going to cut the whole thing off there and then cut a notch in the bottom to fit in the top so that it sits flush. This one I may actually put a little bit of glue in just to hold it in place because it's not going all the way through like the other ones do. So this is what I meant about sort of just cutting it off flush at the end there. And that makes it just sort of as a stop point. So then I take the other ones, I can just sort of slot them back in. And then those are the dividers. And they'll sit right in the watch box. And you can hold a pillow in between them. Then just have to put things like wallet or keys over there. And be a nice little valet tray in the morning. All right, I just need to apply some tongue oil to the dividers, keep those protected, and then I'm going to call it done. I'm not going to put any dividers in the bottom right now. I'm going to use that to hold watch straps, tools, stuff like that, that I don't use all the time, but are still watch associated. And then like my top 8 watches, the ones I actually wear somewhat regularly, will go up here. And I have another, let's face it, another watch box that's going to stay around anyway. So I'm just going to put the watches I don't wear as often in that. Okay, and here it is. Holds my watches, holds my stuff out of my pockets. I'm happy with the way this looks, the finish. I'm still not good at dovetails, but I'm happy with the way these turned out. Same with the brass up here. I like the way that looks. I've got a nice pull on the drawer. That slides okay, so that's, you know, a worry. That's my first time really making a drawer like that. Lid opens up nice. This is removable and adjustable, so if I decide I want to maybe make it 6 to have more room over here, or put these someplace else and make it go all the way over, or adjust the sizing, I can do that. Like, that's all available to me now. These are the watches I tend to wear the most, so I can just have those as easy access. My prior one had them in a tray, had a tray up top that I lift off to get to the second level, which was infinitely harder, especially if I was trying to do that on a work day and had to get out the door. So I'm happy with it. There are some mistakes that I made, some things that I've learned, which is, you know, half the goal here is I make these mistakes to learn from them, and hopefully you won't have to make them later on. For instance, I completely cut off one of the dovetails. I cut the wrong thing when I was sawing it off, and I didn't have extra wood, so I glued it back on now. I know which one it is now. That being said, some of the dovetails are just really wonky, but I put those ones in the back, so they're not really visible. And like I said, overall, just really happy with it. I mean, it's maybe not the best watch box in the world, but it's the best watch box I've made so far. And it does fulfill my needs. If it's got those brass bands, it's got the dovetails, it's made out of mahogany, it looks like it could be a part of a campaign furniture set. Obviously, they weren't going to have a watch box, but that's beside the point. I've got what I wanted, which was to make it look like it was campaign furniture. So that's it for us this time. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.